The Resiliency Ring is an important event because we join together in unity to advocate and bring awareness about issues affecting multi-system youth and families in Ohio. We will hear from youth and family members who will share the struggles and their resilience. We will hear from our state leaders who are working hard to support youth and families around Ohio. Following our speakers, we will join in unity to form a ring which represents support for families and youth who are struggling.
Immediately following the ring, we invite you to join us for lunch in the congressional room at the Sheridan Hotel, right across the street, where we will have fun activities and will be able to network with our partners.
Today, we celebrate the resilience and strength of all youth and families who are managing their own recovery stories every day. Our first speaker is Luke Russell. Luke is the Executive Director of NAMI Ohio. Thank you, Luke, for joining us here and what you do every day to advocate for funding and services needed to support youth and families in Ohio.
Thank you, Nate-Sean. Good afternoon again. My name is Luke Russell. I'm Executive Director at NAMI Ohio. We want to thank you all for being here, joining on this beautiful day. We all get to be outside, not in our offices, and allergies are kicking up, so my voice is a little deeper than normal. But again, this important event here today celebrating the strength and resiliency of Ohio's youth and family. At NAMI Ohio, we are continually inspired by the commitment we see from families and youth we work with each and every day, and I see them coming in and out of Angela's office, and it reminds me why I do the work that I do. Today, as you listen to the presenters share their very personal stories of resilience and hope, I have no doubt you will feel their passion and dedication. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you again, Luke, for your support of Youth Move and the Family Division.
Next, we have Michael Krause. Michael is the Executive Director of Ohio Pro. Ohio Pro is the state network of peer-run organizations. Michael is a tireless advocate for all individuals in or working towards recovery and the peer-run organizations who provide them recovery supports. He has a personal passion for recovery because he too is a person with lived experience and is in sustained recovery. Please help us welcome Michael Krause.
Thank you, Kennedy. Thank you all for being here. It's really a privilege of mine to be here today on this gorgeous May Day and to be here to support youth and Youth Move. You know, we heard from three youth leaders with a lived experience who are in recovery. As Kennedy mentioned, I too have a lived experience and am in sustained recovery, and recovery requires resilience. It requires persistence. It requires malleability, flexibility, determination. And I applaud those individuals and everyone here today who's found recovery because it's hard. But it's made easier when we support one another through events like this and through the connections we make with one another. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for the invitation to be here. I look forward to continuing to work with Youth Move and supporting its many initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for all you do for your peers and peer-led organizations.
As a youth peer leader for NAMI Urban Greater Cincinnati, I appreciate the work that NAMI and Ohio Pro are doing to help peers. When I was growing up, I struggled by being bullied, and that led to me having depression and anxiety. Now, I know that there is power in peer support and voice as I enter my final year in college, and I am dedicated to the behavioral health field more than ever. Now, thank you. Now I get the honor to introduce a new friend, Grace Dannemiller. Grace is an extraordinary young woman who at a young age has become a powerful voice for disability rights. She is here today to share a piece of her story. Thank you, Grace, for your bravery and courage to share your story.
Good
morning, and thank you for coming to the 19th Annual Resiliency Ring. My name is Grace Stannemiller. I'm graduating from high school in North Canton this month, and I'm so honored to be able to share my story with you today. When I think of my childhood, one of the most distinct memories is how I would copy the mannerisms and speech patterns of those around me, grasping to find some way to be seen as normal. The problem that was in copying others, I avoided becoming my own person. And through my masking, I missed being diagnosed with autism at a younger age, which is an unfortunately common experience for autistic girls. As I transitioned into middle school, my differences became more apparent to myself and to others. The pain of not being understood, combined with the onset of physical pain, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, created a world where I was trapped, alone, understood by no one, not even myself. As my Ehlers-Danlos symptoms began to make themselves more and more apparent and intrusive, my mental state declined. By the end of middle school, I just didn't know what to do with my own suffering, and I got myself into trouble by seeking help from other children, oftentimes children who had no idea how to respond besides taking action rather than just listening or being present, which is what I was looking for. Suddenly, I would find myself awoken by sirens in the night for wellness checks or even hospitalization. And while others did too much for my pain, I began a habit of shoving things down. Because of the traumatic nights woken up by the police and terrifying visits to the hospital, I still and probably always will tense up and begin to hyperventilate when I hear a siren. When I began high school, I found myself completely unprepared to feel the unpleasant sensations exacerbated by the new stress of high school. I couldn't tell the difference between an emotion and a physical sensation, much less how to identify which one I was feeling. And this sense of desperation led me to find a release, oftentimes through causing myself physical pain in order to release the tension burning in me that I could not identify. My confusion around my feelings, combined with my pre-existing mental health conditions, spun a world of darkness and a tunnel with no end in sight. I felt like there was no escape, so I attempted to make my own several times. Towards the end of my sophomore year, I began to embrace my power and take my life back into my own hands. That's when I was met with support systems that I have now. It was like I could finally stop drowning long enough to learn how to swim. That's when I found Ohio Rise. Thanks to Ohio Rise, I was able to receive Medicaid, which allowed me to access the necessary medical care that has greatly contributed to my recovery from suicidal ideation and self-harm. Even with two parents working full-time as part of the working class, I would never be able to afford the excessive cost of medical treatment for my mental and physical health conditions. And that's the whole purpose of Ohio Rise. It's for the people who feel stuck, not poor enough to get help from the government and not rich enough to be able to help yourself. Also, with the support of Ohio Rise, I gained access to flex funds, addressing more tangible immediate needs like acquiring a laptop for my online education and other assistive technology suitable to my needs and support plan within my yearly budget. Despite ongoing adjustments, the assistance provided shows Ohio Rise's commitment to improving the lives of individuals who face challenges with mental health, drug addiction, disability, homelessness, or juvenile detention. Ohio Rise's assistance not only granted me access to vital health care through Medicaid, but also alleviated the financial strain associated with managing my medical conditions, which really made all the difference in my recovery. Even more than that, joining the youth council at Ohio Rise gave me a place to help other youth in an environment where I felt supported and comfortable. As I reflect upon my life to this point, I have a lot to be grateful for. I'm grateful for the resources that I was given, the support of my friends and family, and the opportunities I have been able to take advantage of. Just as I am grateful for these things, I'm equally proud of all the work I have put in and all the things I have done to help others. I have added input to the action of the world of disability and mental health advocacy. I write professionally. I'm on the Ohio Rise Youth Advisory Council, and I've gotten into public speaking, one of my biggest fears, because I have so much to say beyond what I'm able to reach with written journalism. I wish I had someone who was not afraid to be like me, someone who would stand with me and while I was enduring my childhood and early teen years. And it's really amazing to see organizations like NAMI Ohio Youth Move and Ohio Rise reaching more people than ever before. As I stand before you, I urge you to know that change is needed. You are needed. Beyond simple change in legislation and procedure, there must be a change in the attitude to which we approach things that make us uncomfortable. We must change the way that we view ourselves within the equation of mental health, not just as people to take action, but as people to be present listeners to those with firsthand experience. As I close the speech, I encourage every person to consider the youth around you, the youth who are struggling, the youth who are in inconceivable pain, and the youth that are dying before your very eyes. Awareness is the first step, but they deserve more. They deserve justice. I thank you all for listening, for the action that you will take, and for your continued support. The youth of Ohio are in your hands.
Thanks to the work of Ohio Rise, families like Grace's and others have a system of support to navigate complicated needs of multi-system youth and families. Please visit with the Ohio Rise representatives this afternoon at the networking luncheon at the Sheraton. Thank you.
Next, we are going to focus on support for youth in the juvenile justice system. This is a very important topic for me. I was a multi-system youth who was often mislabeled as being trouble or a problem child, when in reality I was struggling due to my circumstances at the time. I was in trouble a lot, in foster care, homeless, and became part of DYS due to a violent outburst in middle school. I was very fortunate that there were advocates in my corner who took the time to help me, get to know me, and believed in my resilience, even when I couldn't see it. Today, we will hear from a parent who is doing her best to support her family and their resilience, and who is also working to give back by being a support for others. Please help me welcome Joanna Manning from Lake County, Ohio.
Good afternoon, and thank you, NAMI Ohio and Youth Move, for having me share a little bit about my story today. As I was preparing for today, I was thinking, how do I talk about the resilience of my family in just 3 minutes? There are so many topics to cover, so much that goes into building resiliency. But today I'm tasked with talking about partnering with the juvenile justice system. And I thought, well, I'll start at the beginning. Don't worry, I'm not going to keep you here for 2 hours. I'm going to try to stick to my 3 minutes. And I'll never forget the day that our lives changed. I have 2 children. They are both addicts, and they both have mental health conditions. And at the time, I didn't know anything about mental health. I did not know what it meant to suffer with severe anxiety. I didn't know that my middle schooler calling me every day vomiting from the bathroom was actually a sign that there was something more going on. We were this family that was the 4 of us and no more. Rub some dirt on it, pick yourself up by the bootstraps and keep it moving. And we certainly did not involve other people in our lives. We were a very closed system. But on this day, that all changed. I got a phone call from a detective in one of our local towns where the high school was located, that they had my son in custody. And, well, guess what? You can't ignore that there's a problem anymore. You can't rub some dirt on felony charges. That doesn't work. And so that was the day that my eyes kind of opened. And I thought, how am I going to navigate this? I am in over my head. I know how to love my children. I know how to cook food, keep them safe, right? At least I thought I did. And so I knew how to be a mom. And I realized that I was beginning to engage in this system where the folks around me knew how to do the things that I did not. And so the probation officer knew how to hold my son accountable when he dropped dirty urine screens, or if he missed an appointment or didn't go to school. And the judge knew how to court order treatment so that there could be the appropriate assessments done and my son could receive the appropriate interventions. Those were things I had no idea how to do. And the people in my life didn't have much experience with these things either. And so I leaned into the juvenile justice system. I leaned into them as a partner in helping me help my son find recovery. It was terrifying. Every time I speak or I say something, I check with my kids first because I'm not just telling my story, I'm telling their story as well. And I want to make sure that I'm doing justice. I'm saying what actually happened, not what happened through my lens, but what actually happened within our home. And when I talk with my son, and I get to share with my son now, we get to do ETS for families and also for administrators. And I often interview him and ask him questions, and I say, tell us what's the most important advice that you have for the families or the administrators sitting in this room. And his advice is make the hard decisions. Make the hard decisions. That I remember distinctly sitting on my floor in my closet, agonizing over the decision to call the probation officer and let them know that he had been missing, and that was a violation because he's going to go back to detention. You know, agonizing over calling the sheriff because he's, you know, has paraphernalia in the house or is smoking on the, you know, doing illicit substances in the house and putting the rest of us at risk. Those were agonizing decisions, horrible decisions. And I thought, he'll hate me, right? What will his life be like if I engage him in this system over and over and over again? But as I began to engage in this system, I found support. I found a group of folks who started in their positions because they want to help young people overcome obstacles. They want to help young people recover their lives. And today, I think the biggest thought that I want to leave you, well, there's two main thoughts that I want to leave you with. One is trust. Trust that the people that are sitting in the seats across from you are there to support you. It's so difficult to let go. It's so difficult to stay in our own lane. But as a parent, you're created to parent. Your job is to parent and advocate, be the voice for your child, because children's voices are so tiny, right? Even when they're big teenagers and, you know, but their voices are so small. Our voices, we have power in our voices. Be the parent and allow the judge to be the judge and allow the officer to be the officer. People will rise to the occasion. The people that you entrust your family to, they will rise to the occasion. They will support you, they will guide you, and they will help you. And the last point that, or the last thing I want to say about staying in your lane is when I asked my daughter for her input was that it was so important to the resiliency of our family to have somebody in the home who was there to be there to be loving, there to be kind, there to, now trust me, we had boundary fights and we had all kinds of things. It was complete chaos, but I wasn't there to judge. I wasn't there to be the judge and the jury. I wasn't there for those reasons. I was there to love and support. And to her, as somebody who was involved in the juvenile justice system, to her, that was what really mattered. And so today I challenge you, address your biases, address your fears, and partner with folks. Take the hand of folks. Trust that they have the best interests of your children in mind as they make decisions and support our children. And again, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share just a few minutes of my story. And I hope today that you walk away with some little piece, a little piece in your life that you can carry on and share with others. Have a wonderful day, and thank you again.
Wow. This is such a powerful day to get to hear about the journey and dedication from others, about their stories and their resilience. Thank you, Joanna.
When I was asked to help host today, I'll be the first to admit I was extremely anxious. I still kind of am, but I'm doing the thing. Um, I, like a lot of you, am a peer with lived experience. I have overcome a lot, and I know I still have a long way to go. Having the support of my peers, though, has been a critical piece in my recovery. I myself am a certified youth peer supporter who works in the field every day with youth and gets to share my story of resiliency and recovery in hopes to inspire the youth that I work with. I recently had the honor to meet our next speaker. I've joined Youth Move, and through our state council recently met Tyler Stepp. Tyler met us last fall through a pilot program that we started with the Department of Youth Services. Living up to his name, he stepped up and volunteered right away to be a leader. When I began to learn about Tyler's story, I was overwhelmed and inspired. This is his first event, and we are so happy he is here with us today. Please welcome Tyler.
Woo! That's a lot of people, man. But all right, let's get to it though. All right, there's a lot of people though. That's a lot of y'all, huh? All right, but like you said, my name's Tyler Stepp. I'm a little too close. I don't. I am 18 years old, and I'm the newest member of the Youth Move Ohio Youth Council. This is my first time speaking to a big group, but I'm excited to share my story with all y'all. All right, it's not the best story. My family struggled a lot, poverty, addiction, and mental health issues. We're all I have known my whole life. My mother struggled a lot, and when I was little, she had drug issues, but she still does. My dad was in and out of jail, not around. I grew up my whole life moving around, never really stable. I lived mostly in Columbus and Zanesville when I was younger. Bouncing around, I never had consent care. I grew up on the streets my whole life. I never really had a stable place. When I was 7 years old, my mom put me out on the streets. Being on the street, you had to get help. Well, being on the street, I had to get help whenever I could. The options were not always good. This led me into gang life because it was all I had to protect myself. I was in rough spots. Even got shot when I was just 16 years old. 3 years ago, I was bored. I had nowhere to go. So I was hanging out in this state house where all y'all standing at. And I kind of took a car from the parking garage, a security car. I got caught. Was given 6 months in DYS. Now I'm here giving you this speech just a couple years later. Wow, I can't believe this, man. Um, because of my, thank you. Because of my trauma and anger issues, that 6 months became longer and longer. I kept getting more time at it, and then end up spending 2 years locked up. The thing that makes me resilient is that I survived, even though it didn't seem that way. I have always generally want a better life, but didn't know how to do it without support. I heard about the youth empowerment training at my facility and volunteered to join it. I learned to be a leader and found a positive peer network in Youth Move Ohio. Now I am working on being healthy and stable, and I have a housing and my own bed for the first time in my life. I want to keep moving forward and hopefully one day get back to my community and peers to help them not lose hope and be strong and resilient. Thank you, brother. Listen to my story, man.
What an absolutely incredible story of resiliency. Tyler, truly thank you for your bravery to share with us today.
Now we will hear a few words from Director Amy Ast from the Ohio Department of Youth Services. Director Ast and her staff have partnered with Youth Move Ohio and the Ohio Youth Empowerment Program to bring leadership opportunities and peer support to incarcerated youth. Through this partnership, we work with 7 incarcerated youth through their release and probation. We hope to use what we learned from these 7 young leaders to build a network of peer support in the DYS system so more youth like Tyler can be strong in their recovery and achieve their stability goals. Director Ast, we want to thank you for your leadership and vision to help bring peers into our facilities and partnership for success, for being so supportive for the youth you serve.
If they would have told me I was following Tyler, I may have backed out. What a powerful young man. Let me just tell you, I'm going to go off script a little bit. I want to tell you, because you've heard from him, how I met him. So just about a year ago, John Delick with Youth Moves came to me. I was recently appointed as a director at DYS. And if those of you that know John Delick, you can't meet a more authentic person. And John came to me and said, I want to do a program in DYS. And John immediately shared his story with me. He shared his path. He had lived experience, and he wanted to share that with the youth that were incarcerated in DYS. And one of the best things he said to me that day was, "Director, it's not going to cost you a dime." I was like, "Okay, tell me more." And he said, just give me 6 months to a year. Let me try this program. Let's see if there's a positive impact that I can have. And if I do, I'll come back in a year and we'll have a discussion about formalizing a partnership. So fast forward a year, that was just a couple months ago. So I had an appointment scheduled with John. Him and Angela were coming to my office. And I was coming out of a meeting, getting ready to walk into a meeting with them. And we got a call from the security office downstairs. And they said, "Well, it's not just John and Angela. There's a third person with them." So my executive assistant said, "That's okay. Go ahead and send the three of them up." So I walk out of a meeting to walk into a meeting with them. And I see Tyler. So Tyler introduces himself, and he's in the process of making a cup of hot chocolate at a Keurig machine in my office. And right above the desk where the coffee machine is a picture of myself and of Governor DeWine. And Tyler looked at them, and he looked at me, and he's like, "Y'all are important people." And I started laughing, and I said, "Well, I don't know about me, but that guy right there is pretty important." So we went into the conference room, and Tyler introduced himself and told me about his experience in DYS, told me what was going on with him since he'd been back into his community, and really spent a lot of time talking to me about his relationship with his parole officer. And Angela and John then kind of took over the meeting from there, and we proceeded for about an hour to talk about the role of Youth Move in our facilities and how impactful John's experience had been. So after about that hour conversation, I said to John, "I think it's time to formalize our relationship with Youth Moves." And John, in his quiet way, kind of smiled and just said, "Thank you, Director." And there was this quiet silence at the table in the conference room. And then Tyler leaned in and he looked around at all of us and he said, "This is a good thing, right?" And we were like, "Yeah, it's a good thing." And he kind of pushed himself back from the conference room table and he's like, "I knew we were going to seal the deal." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not so sure if they would have came without Tyler that we would have sealed the deal because of his story. And let me just tell you what I think is so valuable about this program, and you guys saw a little bit of that in this young man, is that he is finding the power in his voice. The power of his story, this chapter of his story. This isn't, where he's lived at this point, and many of you that are here today, this isn't the end of the story. For many of you, it's just the beginning. And I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of this organization. And I'm so proud of the young people who have committed themselves to living with purpose. In DYS and our facilities across the state, when I started in January of 2022, about 63% of our youth were on the mental health caseload. Today, that number is at 76%. And we know that a significant contributor to depression, to substance abuse, to anxiety is the impact of trauma. We will continue to stay on this journey to learn more about trauma, to infuse being a trauma responsive, not only organization, but being a trauma responsive member and partner to the community, especially people like organizations like Youth Move and individuals that work and are committed to Youth Move. That will just continue to strengthen our commitment to being trauma responsive. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you again, Director Ast, for this important work you are doing for our peers in the DYS system. We are so glad to be partners in this service.
Our next Family Voice speaker is Leah Bazook. Leah has a powerful message that all families and youth should hear. She is opening up our final segment on the importance of internet safety and is here to advocate for services and supports for families and youth. She is a certified family peer supporter from Stark County, and we are glad she is here to share her story. Give her a round of applause.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be a part of Youth Move, the Resiliency Ring, and to be with NAMI Ohio here. I'm going to cut to the chase. We all know that social media and the internet in general is dangerous for both adults and for our children, especially for our children. As Janelle said, I'm a family peer supporter, and my role and my work is defined by my lived experience. Today, I want to take a moment to share some of that experience with you so that way, if you were to go through what I have been through, you have some knowledge and a place to start. In my experience, when you find explicit photos of your child on the internet through non-law enforcement means, the officer that you report them to will tell you to call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. NCMEC will file a report with Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children, and then they will tell you to download those explicit photos to your personal device and upload them into a digital escrow account for unique hashing. Those unique hash ID tags will be used to then scour the internet in order to find copies of those photos in order to remove them. When you reach back out to law enforcement because you're concerned about putting yourself in a legally gray area, that officer will say, NCMEC is the expert on internet crimes. After you do what they ask, just make sure to erase the photos from your phone, and then if anything happens, call me. I ended up not being able to do it. In my experience, Internet Crimes Against Children will call you within 24 to 48 hours. They will speak to you for 1 hour, and then you will never hear from them again. They do not have an answering machine. You cannot leave them a message. No one monitors their email inbox. After spending 10 straight days staring at a screen on Memorial Day 2023 using the skills you learned while growing up when the internet was really starting to rise, all you will want to do is sleep. But it is traumatizing to experience reading through thousands of emails and Snapchat messages and Discord servers, connecting dots by matching usernames and profiles, praying that this is the last photo that you find, and having to dig deep in order for the strength to push onward. I still have nightmares. I have been blessed to have an excellent support team. My husband, who makes sure that I am not drowning in managing the overwhelm of a child with high mental and behavioral support needs, and who holds intentional space for me to process all of the things that we're going through. Our Ohio Rise care coordinator, Veronica Early, who has worked tirelessly to explore as many treatment options as possible. Our NAMI parent advocates, Ashley Himes and Adina Beach, who have been a constant reminder that we are strong and our dedication to finding help is what makes us that way. We were very lucky to find residential care for my stepchild. 6 months they were there before successfully being discharged. Within 24 hours of being released, that cycle started again. Only this time there was almost no paper trail. It was no longer a game of digital hide and seek because there was nothing to find. Rather than exchanging photos, they began relying on video platforms like Google Meets and Zoom, or Instagram video calls. So all I was finding was message threads with so-and-so video called you, or video called to so-and-so. When we talk about the safety of our children on the internet, it tends to be from a preventative point of view. And I think that's really noble. I'm glad to see that our politicians and our legislators are taking these things seriously. However, in the grand scheme of things, prevention only goes so far. The bureaucratic process is a wheel that turns slowly, and the internet waits for no one to evolve. I want to conclude with this. We need to make sure that parents and youth are well educated on how to report and seek help. We need to make sure that there is adequate funding for the Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force to be properly managed. We need to make sure that there are critical services available for our families who are navigating this nightmare, particularly our family and youth peer supporters who will hold our hands and walk with us on our journey. We need support groups for parents and children. I fully support prevention and early intervention, in addition to support for the families and children who have been violated by online predators. I urge you to consider the process for families like mine. Do we have initiatives and policies that educate the people who need to be educated? Would you know what to do if it happened to you? Prevention is noble and it is necessary, but there will always be someone who falls through the cracks. How are we helping them? Thank you.
Olivia, thank you for sharing on that very vulnerable topic. It's so important that we speak about it. And it is my privilege and honor to introduce our final speaker for today, Ohio's Second Lady, Tina Houston. What I learned about our Second Lady of Ohio is that Tina Houston is many things. The first thing is she has many talents and interests. She started her career with a degree in physical therapy. She has been in real estate, she is an artist, and she is a member of the Ohio Arts Council, and she supports her husband and his official duties as Ohio's Lieutenant Governor. And with all those things to do, it must be helpful to, and on top of everything else, I found out that she's a master marathoner. And with all those things to do, it must be helpful to know how to run. All of that is certainly inspiring, but most importantly, she is a parent. Tina is supporting initiatives to address internet safety for kids in Ohio. She is working in partnership with legislators and parents all around Ohio to make sure parents have rights and children are safe online. We are so happy to have her with us today to share her perspective and vision for Ohio's parents and children. Please welcome Tina Houston.
Thank you, Kennedy. Appreciate it. So on behalf of the governor's office and the lieutenant governor's office, I'm very thankful to be invited. And Director, I will say that this governor is one of the best governors that I've ever heard or seen that cares about mental health of our state and of Ohio. And we're thankful that we have such an important person caring about you and caring about our people. It's very, very critical. Why do I care so much? I'll share a little personal story. I've had 2 cousins I've lost to suicide. I have a very close family member that has bipolar. So we've dealt with some serious loss and struggle in our family. And I personally have been depressed because of an injury where I couldn't sleep. And I struggled with depression for a long time. So I understand some of the things that people go through. I don't understand all of it, but I am empathetic. And I want you to know that we truly do care and want to make a difference in this state. The most important thing that's happening in my view right now, especially with our youth, is this social media issue. I will again share a personal story. Our daughter, Kylie, who's now 14, about 5 years ago, was coming home from school and she was upstairs and I heard a lot of jumping around. And I went up and she had her iPad out and I asked her what she was doing. She said, well, I'm recording a video on TikTok. And I said, really? I said, well, let me see the video. And she said, oh, you don't want to see it. So she wouldn't show it to me. So later on, because I'm a mom and I care, I went and pulled out the video. And the video was a song that was, quite frankly, one of the most explicit songs I'd ever heard with terrible language. And I said, this isn't happening in our family. This isn't happening. And I pulled our other daughter aside, who's 2 years older now, both of our daughters, 14 and 17. I told them, we are not going to use TikTok in this house. We will never use it again. And they haven't ever since. However, there's no way to prevent all the other social media platforms that are out there. Over 95% of all youth ages 13 to 17 report using a social media platform. We are living in the wild, wild west of social media. There are no controls, there are no parameters, and now finally, people are starting to understand the damage that is happening. It is, in my view, an epidemic, and we must do something. Teens have spent more than 3 hours a day on the social media, and those who spend more than 3 hours a day have shown through a great researcher, this is now documented, Jonathan Haidt, if you look him up, he's an NYU researcher, and he's a published author, that if you spend more than 3 hours a day on social media, that mental health issues will significantly increase. And it goes like that. It's not like this, it goes way up. So we're very, very concerned when 60% of teenage girls say they've been contacted by a stranger on social media platforms. It's like taking your phone, this device, into someone's bedroom. You're inviting, especially a child's bedroom, you're inviting a stranger into their bedroom. You'd never invite a stranger into your bedroom, especially your children. It only takes 3 minutes to sign up for a TikTok account, and content, terrible content, enters into that feed almost immediately. Content on self-harm, content on eating disorders, content on suicide. The suicide rates of our children have increased 167% from 2010 to 2021. Our teens check their phones frequently. I look at my daughter's phone and I see how many times she picked it up. She's picked it up a lot. And we continually try to educate them that the phone use needs to be minimized. I have put restrictions and parameters on our phones for our children, and they understand the dangers, fortunately, but not every child has a parent that knows or cares. So I will say, with an event like this, Grace, we need each other. We really need each other. I know that that was part of what you were sharing. We need a community like NAMI. We need a community like Ohio's Resiliency Ring. We need each other, and we need to have personal companions in our lives that will support us, to help us through our struggles. When I think of resiliency, I think resiliency leads to hope. And one of my favorite Bible passages is Romans 5:3. Romans 5:3 says, rejoice in your suffering. Rejoice in that suffering, because what suffering does is it produces perseverance. And I know everyone here has persevered. Tyler, you've persevered. And through that perseverance, it builds character. And character produces hope. So I hope today that each and every one of us can go out and find someone who needs you. Gandhi said, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in service to others. And that is what we are all doing here today. That is where we will produce the resiliency. That is where we will produce the hope. But my true prayer for this state and this country is that we start to really understand what is happening with our children, what is happening to this generation. I have many parents that have come up to us now that the governor is, understanding and acknowledging that we need to do something. Have said, we're all on board. We don't want our kids that are under the ages of 8 to be using these devices. So I think we're going to see a change, that it's not going to be the wild, wild west anymore. But with education and understanding that we can share with each other and become more resilient, become more supportive of each other, we can really make a difference in the years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tina, and all of our speakers today for all you are doing every day to make a difference in the lives of children in Ohio. Before we get started with the actual ring in Resiliency Ring, I would like to give a special shout out and recognition to the youth leaders behind the scenes who made this event happen, despite their own hectic lives. To all the parent and youth speakers who shared their stories, to all the Youth Move Council members who planned this event, and especially to the youth leaders who spent hours in the state office making the vision of the ring a reality. Sasha Bowers, a Youth Move and Youth Empowerment Program original leader, whose birthday was yesterday, by the way. Amber GM, who is also graduating from The Ohio State University this Sunday. And finally, to Nevaeh Fernan, our resident superstar peer supporter, who at only 20 years old pulled off all the complicated pieces together by helping youth and families make arrangements, finalize plans, and remove barriers to help attend today. The amazing power of peer leaders. And of course, thank you all for taking the time to join us here today. Without you, this work would not be possible.